Thank you, Christina, and welcome everyone to the second day of the CASAS Virtual Summer Institute. This is our first virtual summer institute, so I hope it's going smooth enough for everyone. It certainly is a challenge, but there's a lot of advantages, as well as the unfortunate thing that we can't see each other in person. But the nice thing that I like is a lot more people can participate because it's virtual. So today we're going to be talking about the student portal. I am the CASAS program manager for the TOPSPro and eTest software. And TOPSPro Enterprise includes a student portal, so we'll be discussing how it fits in there. And I'm joined today by Gabriel Mihalake. He's the primary programmer for the student portal, so he'll be assisting me in parts of this presentation today. If you have questions as we go along, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question at that time, but we'll also take them at the end. So whatever you feel comfortable with is fine. So with that, let me go ahead and proceed. So what we'll talk about today is we'll show a network diagram of TE and where the student portal fits in, and then how you can customize the student portal for your agency. And then we'll do a demonstration, both of the student portal and of Classmate. And I'll talk a little bit more about what Classmate is, but the reason we're demonstrating it is that it connects to the student portal. The other thing I'll mention is that we're using the development environment, so we're going to show a video that we've already created when we do the demonstration. So first, with the network diagram, this is going to describe where the student portal fits in and also what the student portal is for. So those of you who are familiar with TOPSPro, have been around for a while, know that when we came out with our TOPSPro Enterprise product, at that point we merged the accountability module of TOPSPro with our eTest. And so they now share the same common database. So the two very different interfaces. And you know, one of them, the accountability is used by staff and the test delivery is used by students, obviously for very different purposes, but the database is the same for both. And it's been that way since 2012, I believe, if I have the date correct. So over time, we've been expanding and we started with a student portal. And that is actually a separate application that is connected to that common database we talked about via an API. And we did that intentionally because we didn't want students to be logging in directly to TOPSPro Enterprise. And for that reason, it's a separate application that they access through the web. And that mediating database belongs to the student portal, but when it gets data from the students, it exchanges it and goes directly into TOPSPro Enterprise. So more recently, we added Classmate. That's a mobile application, and it's used by teachers that are giving daily attendance without needing to log into TE at all. So what happens is the class roster for the teacher gets downloaded automatically on their phone, and they can take daily attendance on the phone just in a few clicks without ever having to get into TE. Now with Classmate, there's also a student component, so a student can also have Classmate and use that to chat with the teacher. That's why there's that line between the two classmates. But there's also a line going to the student portal, as you'll see, because the student is able to access information from the student portal on their own student record. So we'll show a little bit more about that later. So where we are today, more recently, if you were here yesterday, I had a demonstration on transcripts. We won't talk about that today, but that's the new feature that has just been developed. And matriculation is a feature that is in development. We'll talk a little bit about that more later, but it relates to the student portal, and it relates specifically in if you have fee-based classes, if you want to do invoicing and payment services and so on, that's something that we're adding that will be part of the student portal soon. So what we'll be demonstrating today is what the student portal has today, and we'll talk a little bit about what will be there in the future. So let's just go over the progression here of the student portal. In phase one, which was about 3 years ago when it first came into being, it was a place for students to do practice tests. And it was also a place for the employment and earning survey. Excuse me. So those of you outside of California may not may know about the fact that you have to report this to the NRS on students who have gained employment or have improved their job conditions over time. And you may be doing that through a data match where you get the social security number from your students. And that way it's probably more automatic for you. But in the case of California, very few students are providing a social security number, and so we had to implement a survey. So the Employment and Earnings Survey is our way of reaching out to students and asking them if they've gained employment so that we have that information without having their social security number. So that's how phase 1 started. Phase 2, we started adding personal information. So that's demographics on the student and some program information. Also a place where they can see their educational progress, and now a place where they can also do class enrollment. So that's where we are in phase 2, and that's what we'll be demonstrating today. And then phase 3 is where we're aiming for in December, where we add more of that matriculation and payment services, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. Okay, let's see if we can get the slide to advance. There we are. So in section 2, we're going to talk about how you can customize the student portal for your agency. But there's one important prerequisite, and that is that you must allow TE to generate student IDs. And that's, obvious in a way, because if you have students that are coming through your website to TE, then they're coming directly and they don't have any sort of profile or history or student ID yet. So we have to create that student ID. So if you're going to use a student portal for students to register into the program, then you have to turn on this auto generation of student IDs, and we'll show you how to do that when we get into demonstration. So there's 4 parts to customize. One is choosing from some different options you have when you want to create an ID. 2 is data collection. So which fields do you want the student to see when they come to the student portal? And then what classes do you want the students to be able to enroll in? Part 3 of customization are emails. You can personalize the email that is inviting the student to come to the student portal. And 4 is there's a student portal home screen, and that's to represent your agency, and we'll show you how you personalize that. So with that, I'm going to go to a demonstration right now of parts 1 and 2. Oh, actually, I just need to go to TE. So we're using our fake database for Rolling Hills 4908. Sorry. Putting in my password. And what we're going to do is go to where you can customize the fields that will appear in the student portal. So that's the first thing we're going to show you. It's something that's been in TE for some time. You probably haven't noticed it because you're not using the student portal. But if you go back to your computer today, you'll find it under organization. Way down here is a student portal. And by the way, this is all recorded, so you'll be able to see this whole demonstration after the Summer Institute. So when you do that, you'll see that everything's marked and there's a lot of fields. So you probably don't want all of that, and it's very easy to change. And you'll see, we're going to go over this again in the more somewhat of a live demonstration. But I just wanted to show you that when we throw the demonstration, we're going to have a lot more fields than you'd probably want to ever show. So you can really narrow it down, and it may be all you want to collect are date of birth and name, and maybe ethnicity and races, maybe gender, and stop there. And that may be it. So whatever you want to customize, you're able to customize. You just click save. And then these are the exact fields that will appear in the portal when a student comes. So next thing I want to show you is for auto-generating student IDs. This will also be part of our demo, but I want to show some detail that doesn't appear in the next demo. Sorry, here we come. I also want to point out that there's no student portal area down here until you go to your auto generation method and turn it on. Okay, so we'll show that this appears after we do that. So down here is our ID auto generation method, and we're going to set one because we don't have one yet. And here's where we have a number of options, and we'll talk about that top portion later. So I'm just going to show you things that are not in the demo. So there's 3 options: random, we'll see that in the next demo. There's fixed 10 character, and that's where every student is going to have the same 10 characters. And so with John Doe, you have the first 2 letters of his last name, and then the first 2 letters of his first name, his birth month, and then 3 random characters. And that's fixed length. So that's one option you could have for your student IDs. But let's look at another one that's usually more popular. And that's combining name, date of birth, and a random generated, but you also have more options. So you could have the whole ID be numeric. And it's important to make the right decision here because alphanumeric is an advantage because you can have shorter length student IDs that will create more student IDs for students. But you may have to have numeric if you're using TOPSPro answer sheets, or you have your own systems where people are bubbling ID and it can be number only. And that's just, you know, the history of your school. If you need to have numeric only, just be cognizant of the fact that you have that option and you wouldn't want to choose alphanumeric. All right, but once you do that, you then decide how many characters do you want for the random at the end. So I'm going to start with 3. And then we give you a sample. So we tell you what it looks like for one sample student, but we also tell you how many unique IDs that creates. And this one creates just 999. So that may not be enough. It depends on the size of your agency. So let's say that's not enough. So we go to 4 characters. And now this tells us this can create 9,999 IDs. And again, this is how I described the previous sample. It's the same concept. It's first 2 letters of last name, first name, month of birth, and then the random characters. So notice though, if we go to alphanumeric, all of a sudden we can do a lot more unique IDs with with only these 4 extra characters. So that's why there's advantages of going back and forth, and this lets you play with all the differences before you decide what you're going to use for your agency. So I just want to make that clear that all of that's available for you. So I'm just going to stick right here to those. Click OK. And this is telling us that this is not going to affect any students that are already in your system. So if students already have student IDs that were assigned by whatever system you're using now, those student IDs will stay the same. And this will only affect new students who come in, okay? New students will get these new IDs. All right, so once we've done that and we scroll down, now we see that this CASAS portal section has come in. And we'll show this in the demo, so I won't go into much more now. But as you can see, I've already customized it a little. We uploaded a logo, we gave it a name, and so on. So we'll cover this again later. Just want to show you where it was. And then an important thing is this is also where you get a link to your custom portal. So this is going to be the URL that you use. And I'll show you why that's important later when we go to customizing your home screen. So this tells you where your home screen is actually. All right. So what I also want to show you is how you can use the student demographic lister to invite a student to the portal. And this is someone who's already in your software now, who's already in TE. So obviously this is not someone who's newly registering, but this is someone who's already there. And if you want to introduce them to the portal, you would just choose a student or a whole batch of students. So I'm just going to choose one. And you have an invite button up here in the toolbar. You can see that invite button. And then you can have an RLI invite, but we're going to go for the account invite. And account is the student portal. And the tooltip is saying send student portal account invitation. So it gives you more information. Are you sure you want to create an account? Yes. So then we get into this wizard. That's the first screen. Just click next. And we only chose one student, so it's very easy. We see that the student has an email address and they have a phone number, so that's important to know before you send an invitation. And then we have the option of how we want it delivered. So we can have email only, SMS only, first by email, but if they don't have email, then SMS, or both. So we have a number of options. I'm just going to choose email only. And then we have the invitation delivery date. So maybe we don't want to start it today. Maybe we're going to start it in a couple of days, but we have those options of the dates. I'm just going to leave it on today. And then we can apply invitation customization. So I want to show you that. And here's where you can say exactly what you want to appear in the email invitation. So we have something that we've already put in for you. It starts with the school name and it fills it in automatically, although you can customize this. So what you might want to do here, in fact, here's a something I've already set up. So at San Diego Adult School, the student may not recognize that name if they're always going to the Harbor View Center, right? So you can put in Harbor View Center here, and that's what they'll see in the email. So it'd be something that they would recognize. And then we have, thank you for attending San Diego Adult School. We care about our students. Please take 2 minutes to create an account with the CASAS portal, update your demographic information. So this can be customized however you want it. I'm just going to make one simple change and change 2 minutes to 5 minutes. And just go next. And that's all there is to the wizard. We click, we choose finish. And it says the requested invitation has been successfully recorded. So it's now going to the student in an email. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show of this right now. And we'll go back to our slide presentation. So this is what the email would look like for the student. This is with a logo already put in, which we hadn't done that yet for the email yet. But this text up here is exactly what was in that customization wizard we just went through. And here's where Harbor View Center appears from that customization. So it starts up here with San Diego Adult School, Harbor View Center, and then the text that you specified. We didn't have a logo there yet, but we'll be adding that. We do have it already for the homepage, which you'll see coming up. Now, the one thing we can't change is the domain here. It's coming from portal@casas.org. So that may be something you want to explain to your students later if you think they'll catch that or be concerned about that. But we obviously can't use your domain name, so we have to do it this way. So remember I showed you how this get link button is giving you the URL for your agency. So now you can customize your home screen. So let's take, this is a real adult school website. This is the San Diego College of Continuing Education. And they have 2 buttons here. Click here to register if you are a new student. Click here for returning. So if you were coming to this adult school website, you would click here for new. And then they go through their own process, and you must have your process too for new students, steps to enroll, and it's guiding them through what they need to do. So you would have the same website that you have now for introducing your students to the steps. And at some point, you're going to have something like this link here, which is online student application and registration. So this is where you would embed that link that we just showed you. You would just tell your programmer that I want that link there. And once you do that, and the student clicks it, it'll go to the CASAS portal. But this is how it looks today, because this is the generic look, but this is not the customized look, okay? So this is the CASAS portal. This is where the student would go, but let's see what it looks like when it's customized. And so now what we've done is we've taken San Diego Adult School, put the name up here, have their logo here, and this is what was, part of the portal by itself. And then this was also added. This is just text that I added, but this would be your welcoming text that you could put in. So I just made up, we welcome you to our program with open arms. We are here to help you achieve your educational goals. So this is how your page on the CASAS portal can look. And then the last thing I wanted to show you in this section is where you would go to, and we'll show this in the demo also. You have a class here, it's your adult basic education. If you want it to appear in the student portal, you want the students to be able to see it and register for it, then you just say yes here to selectable in portal. All right, so now we're going to go to a demonstration, a video that we created earlier. I'll load that. And maybe if you don't mind, Gabriel, you could start with some narration.
Okay, so
let me pause it here. That went a little fast, so I'll back up for you, sorry.
Okay. So we're going to organization, classes instances. This will open the list of classes in the current program year. And we're going to filter by the class description containing orientation.
And this is because we only want to show orientation classes to the student, and we've already set these up in advance.
So we have 2 classes. We're going to edit both of them. As mentioned, there's a field called selectable in portal, which you need to edit to say yes in order for the class to appear in the portal. So this is what we're doing now. We're selecting yes. And then we're going to edit the intensity section and just add the class schedule. Let's say this class meets on Tuesday and Thursday. And we're going to save the record. Now moving to the second orientation class, the adult basic education one. We're doing the same thing, selectable in portal yes. And then we put Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as the class schedule. And we're saving the record. And now if we close this and get back to the lister, and we right-click the header, so first we clear the filter, and we right-click the header to add a new column. So we add is selectable in portal. That puts a new column in the lister, and now we can filter, see how many classes we are going to show in the portal. Only the two that we want, the orientation classes, so it's all good. Now we're closing this lister, and we're going to organization, student portal. And now we're going to select what fields are we going to collect from the student, what demographic fields. So let's say everything under contact except for ward and the fax number.
That's a rather outdated field.
Yeah. And then everything under demographic, education background. We're just going to collect the current employment status, program eligibility, goals and interests, and then services.
Now, you probably will not want to do all these fields for your students because they wouldn't know how to answer all these. So this would probably be for advanced students, and you have the ability to collect them. So we're just showing you as an example.
And you're saving. And the last piece is to go to the agencies lister. So this is our agency here, Big River Community College. We're going to edit this. And if you look at the bottom, there's no portal section yet. And the auto generation method is none. So we need to change that. We click the change method button. And it's telling us there are more methods available, and very important, this change does not change any existing data. So you don't have to be worried about your existing data or your existing student IDs. It only applies to new student records. This time we're going with a random one. We can have numeric or alphanumeric IDs. So if we choose numeric IDs of 6 characters, we get a sample in red at the bottom, and we see there are almost 1 million unique possibilities. And if we go to 7 characters, or if we change to alphanumeric IDs, we have many more options, and this is how it looks like. So let's stick for the presentation with 6 characters, only digits. And we are asked for a confirmation on the last one. And again, no existing data is changed in the process. We're going to click yes. Once we selected this, you see there's a new section appearing at the bottom called CASAS portal. So we're going to edit the agency name. So we say instead of Big River Community College, we're going to say Big River Education Provider. And we're going to say class selection is allowed, important, and is also mandatory.
Now we could also say not mandatory, and then the student would be able to skip it if they see it and they don't want to register for a class.
Exactly. And we're saving the record. Now, if we save, we can access the link. So we click the Get Link button. This will give us a link, which is already copied to the clipboard. We just need to paste it into the browser for this presentation purpose. In reality, you're going to put it on your website for students to be able to access it. So we are pasting the link. It's loading. Because it's our first access, it's asking what language do we want to use with the website.
And I'm pausing it right here. So we have the ability to put any language, so the student can get all of this student portal information, the information that they enter and all the questions they're asked in their native language. And we have the framework already set up. So all we need is a volunteer for these languages, and we'll be doing Spanish and a couple of these ourselves. But for the rest of them, if you want Vietnamese or if you want Portuguese or anything else, just let us know and we'll find some volunteers and we'll put in the native language for that language. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
I'm confused about like quite a few things that you guys have already mentioned. Starting with student IDs, if we're creating student IDs on ASAP, is it necessary to create new IDs all over again or no?
Well, so ASAP is another attendance system, right? And so you wouldn't be using the student portal for registering if you're using ASAP for registering your students, right? So this student portal is for people who don't already have a attendance system already, or they want to move to using TE, because you can't have both of them generating IDs.
That was my second question, is what exactly was the student's portal supposed to be used for? Because I wasn't sure if it was just registering students or, providing material for them or showing what work they've completed. I didn't quite understand what the actual portal was for.
So we talked about that once already, and I'll come back to that actually at the end to go over all the different things the student portal can do. But I do see some confusion there, so I'll help you clear this up in that it can be used without, it can be used while you still are using ASAP, for example, because you wouldn't use it for registering a new student, but you can use it, like I showed you, inviting a student to the portal. So they already have an ID. You're not asking them to create a new ID. They're already in your system, but they can come to the portal to see their educational progress, for example. So that's one use of the portal, that you can still use your other attendance system simultaneously. But if you don't want to have a second attendance system and you want TE to do that, then TE would need to auto-generate the IDs. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can you set up it looked like you can set up the employment and earnings survey on that as well.
Well, yeah, so employment earnings has nothing to do with having another attendance system or not. So that is a feature on the student portal that you can use in TE independently, yes.
Okay. And then you guys talked something about an orientation, but I don't know how you created that and was a little curious about that as well.
Oh, well, that's just to say that, and this was a recommendation from a user in Iowa that was doing this, saying that, well, a student who's coming new isn't going to know that they're ready for ESL low or ESL high or something like that, right? Those are your typical classes that you've already set up. So if someone's coming new, you probably want to orient them first. So you would create an orientation class where they come in and you'd probably give them a test, decide if they're ABE or ESL, what level they are, and then you would put them in one of your standard classes. So that's just the best practice that we had from this one customer, but you can decide what classes appear.
Thank you.
Any other questions about this? Otherwise, I'll go on. All right. Thank you. Those were good questions. Back to you, Gabriel.
Okay, so we have chosen the language and we're switching to this registration form. We have the friendly agency name, Big River Education Provider, and some info in the yellow box. Now we need to supply demographics here, first and last name.
Sorry, Gabriel, I paused it.
Yeah.
So this is the default customization we have now, but this can change. So we're just doing this for demonstration purposes, but you can see where the customization can come in. So I've restarted it.
Okay. So we're going to put in the first name, the last name, choosing a gender, date of birth, and very important now, either email or phone number are required for creating an account in the portal.
And the nice thing is you can have one or the other, so they can choose which one.
Yeah, so this time we're going with the email.
And I'll skip past this part. Move us on. This is one thing that will happen to any student. This is getting your strong email ID. So one thing we'll want to do is find out what a good length is that students are likely to have and just find out what those standards should be.
Okay, so when we click register, the portal will inform the student the email address needs to be verified. So we need to continue. And it's now saying an email has been sent to the address with the verification code. So now we're switching to the student email. And we have this email from the CASAS portal, Robert, and some info, and also a direct link to validate the email. But this time we're going with the verification code. We click continue, and now the email has been successfully verified. We're done. And here we are asking for consent about enrollment into the SMS system.
And I'll stop you here, Gabriel, and talk about this for a moment. So this part here became pretty complex, and that was necessary. I'll give you a little history here. I think we're going to be able to change this, but the shortcode program, I mean, the student's not going to know what that is, and we'll take that out. But what happens is when we set up SMS to go to the portal, we had to go through Twilio and all the carriers, AT&T, T-Mobile, et cetera, and there's a very stringent vetting process, because obviously they're trying to prevent companies that are using text messaging for spam and so on. So they needed us to show what we say to the students and what exactly the student can expect in terms of how often will they get SMS messages, what would the reasons be. And so we had to make this particular screen to satisfy them. But I think now that it's been operating for a certain period of time, we can customize this and make it a lot more simple for the students. So this is why it's looking the way it looks. It's a very stringent vetting process to get to this point, so you can send SMS messages. But I think in the next phase, we'll be able to customize it more for our students. So I just want to throw that out.
Okay, so we're selecting yes. We're clicking on the continue button. And now is the class selection part. So we have the two classes we set up as selectable in portal. And we select the second one. Click on join. And now we have the common intake form. This is customized with the fields that we selected in TOPS Enterprise, exactly the demographic fields that we want to collect from the student. As you can see, there are most of them that are possible to collect.
I'll skip this part a little just to keep
Yeah.
us moving. Now, a student can see this on their mobile phone as well as on a website. So it's customized for mobile first. It obviously works at both places. Now, anywhere you see circles, those are radio buttons, and you can only select one. And where you see boxes, those are multiple mark fields. And again, if this was a beginning ESL student, you obviously wouldn't collect all this information, but for demonstration purposes, we're just showing you what it would look like.
Richard, you should mention the questions in the chat window will be answered after the video.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not seeing the chat questions right now, so we will get them later.
Okay, so the demographic information has been collected. Now the student is created in TOPS Enterprise. We're just checking one more time. And if we're going back to TOPS Enterprise now, we're going to records and then students and the demographics lister. And here we already have a default filter that was not supposed to be the one selected. So we're going back to the default filter, which will show all students. And now we show you a special filter that is designed to show just the students registered through through student portal. So when we click this filter and click OK, we have the Robert grant we just created. You can see the 6-digit ID, which was generated by the system with all the data that was collected from the portal. And if we go to check the class enrollments for this student, we can see the student is enrolled in the English as a second language orientation class with the date of today. And I think this concludes this part of the session.
Okay, so I'll close this video, and now I should be able to see the chat. This is what we just did. Is there a way to translate the demographic items into other languages? For example, can you integrate Google Translate to Student Portal? You know, we're going to use some tools too to automate this as much as possible. It's something that we're looking into. So I should have gone to the top, sorry. So that is something we'll try to do for you. But in the end, you're still going to we'll still need a human to vet the final translation. Okay, it'd be great if we could send massive text messages and emails. I'll talk about that in a moment. So we have, you know, a lot of that capability, but it isn't all there yet. So I'll come back to that soon. If we are creating a student, can we? Did we get this already? Okay, so this is the question where we can't use ASAP and TE at the same time. Can we change their ID after they are in TE? Gabriel?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you can
Even-
always change an ID, can't you? Right.
Yes, as long as the new ID is not taken.
Right, right. Can students reply to email? No, at the moment there's no reply. Can any of this be provided in language? Yes, I think you've seen that by now. So you've seen the translations. Why we create new IDs? Okay, I think we answered that. If not, someone can unmute themselves and verify. You don't all see the chat as I'm seeing it, do you? Maybe you don't, I don't know. I have a similar thought. If the portal is another option to collect the demographics and employment info needed for E&E survey. Okay, that's specific to the survey, so I won't answer that here. You can email that to me afterwards. I would like students to access their individual skills profile in progress. Can they do this through the student portal? Yes, they can, and they can also do it through Classmate. And I'll be showing a demo for that in a moment. Do students need to create login information, username and password, or do they simply access the student portal via the link? So they'll be creating it after they click the link. That's when they'll, as we saw in the demonstrations, that may have come before the demonstration. What if student portal is grayed out in TOPSPro Enterprise? That's probably because you're not a user at the agency level. So an agency level user has access to the student portal. We already collect demographic information from students. Yeah, that's a good thing to mention. So if we already have student demographics in TE, the student won't be asked for it in the portal. It'll already be there. All right, I think we've answered those. So I'm gonna go to, we just have one little demo left. It's for the, it's for Classmate, and then we will have more Q&A. So get out of here. And this is short. So this is, as you can see, there's a teacher role and a student role. So this is Lily Adams logging in as a student. I'll pause it there so you can see a little bit longer. And so what she can see here is her class schedule. She has one class with Mr. George Nelson, ESL high level, and it meets, looks like, in 4 different days. And we have a chat function. So the teacher, Mr. George Nelson, has sent a message. And so we have one there saying that homework was received. And the student has another set of messages going on with a group that's been created. So here the student sees the message from the teacher, homework is received. The student's replying, thanks. And now what's going to happen is the student's going to click on this account profile information button at the top. And they'll see the options available are the account, their educational progress, and demographics. So we'll look at each one briefly here. Account is very basic. It's just your name and your password in case you need to change it. So we'll look at educational progress. Now here, we'll probably spell this out better in the future, but this is basic skills. So the student came in to the program on January 19th of this year, and they're up to date till today. The student's goal is to get a better job, and secondary is improve English skills. And here the student can see their assessments. So it looks like 4 days after coming into the program, they were given a Form 901R, scored 192. Now on June 11th, they got the 904, and now they're at a 201. So they can see their test scores, and they can see other results that they have in TE so far. They wouldn't have work results probably, but I'm just showing you for demonstration purposes. And then finally, demographics, the same thing that we were seeing on the student portal, the student can see in this Classmate application as well. And that's it for Classmate. And he's just going to log out now. Yes. So we'll go back to slides, and then we should have plenty of time for Q&A. Let me just first say in review before I take the questions. So in review, the matriculation thing is what's coming. Actually, it's probably better if I go to this last screen, or I should say, no, I'll go to the last screen, that'll work better. So we're in phase 2, but there's enhancements that we'll continue to make with what was been implemented in phase 2. And one of them is badges. So we were just looking at educational progress, and we showed how the student can see test scores and other educational results. But we're also going to add badges where they can get a badge for, say, completing EFL. They've gone from ESL low to ESL intermediate or something. So that's just another way for them to get some encouragement in their educational progress. And one of the questions I was asked about is more about robust messaging. So we've put in the whole framework and structure for this. As you can see, we can already send email invitations to the student for the survey, for joining the portal, and so on. We just haven't opened it up to a full back and forth yet. So that's something that we expect to develop soon. And of course, there's an expense with that. There's an expense with sending out SMSs and so on. So that's one of the things that we have to make sure that we're able to compensate for as well before we turn those features on. But it's something that's definitely will be coming. And then in phase 3, what's not there for the portal yet is that matriculation module I talked about. And that's where if you have, for example, fee-based classes, then you're going to want to be able to collect payments from students, and you would probably need invoices, receipts. You have to have a way to have refunds, financial reports. So that's what would be in the matriculation module that would be coming in December. So with that, I will now open up the chat and see if there's new questions, but you can also unmute yourself and ask questions now as well. Whenever a student updates info on the app, is it automatically updates in TE? Yes. So that's going back to our diagram. As you can see, the student portal is connected to TE through an API. So it's not going to be instantaneous, but it's going to be pretty quick. Some things will happen in a matter of seconds. Some may take a little bit longer, but depending on the scheduling, all these things definitely are exchanged. So the class, when something's updated in the portal, you know about it in Classmate, you know about it in TE, and you know about it in the portal. So these are all getting updated through API.
Generally speaking, when teachers are using the Classmates thing, are they using their own personal cell phones, or is that like a district cell phone that's provided to them, generally speaking?
That's a decision made by the district. So I know one school that's piloting, the teachers are using their personal phone, but that would be up to you. How would the student progress be defined, by test, or can the school generate indicators? So that's getting a little bit towards the badges, right? Because that's one example where we can show progress in different ways. And you know, one way is EFLs, but it could be done in other ways as well. So that's from Diana Batista, and she could contact me if she has other ideas, because that's something we're certainly open to exploring.
Okay, Richard, if I could interrupt just for a moment. I was thinking that maybe we could set like attendance indicators, you know, how like we used to do like perfect attendance or something, but maybe after they achieve so many hours, we could send out, you know, congratulations, you've reached this or that. And maybe that would be like an incentive for students to keep coming because, you know,
yes,
a little competitive edge in there, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that sounds doable, and it sounds like that could be a badge too, right? You could have a badge for perfect attendance or those kinds of things. So yes,
thanks.
Absolutely.
This is exciting.
Can you share a student login, username, and password so we can become familiarized with the app? Okay, I think, did you, that come after our demo? Let me see if I understand the question.
as a teacher, I like to be I like to just know what I'm going to share with my students, so that way I can help them navigate the app. So if there's like maybe a username, like, you know, one of those rolling hills usernames and passwords, and that way I can go in the app and that way I can present it to my teachers.
Oh, you want to do a
and to my
live demo
students.
for them? I see what you're
Yes.
saying, a
And-
live
but-
demo.
Yeah, but first I would need to understand it myself.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
It may be that the best way to do that is with video. I'll look into that to see if we can, because you're probably thinking like Rolling Hills Adult School. Can you do that with the Classmate app? No one's asked me that yet, so I have to give that more thought. That may be possible, but if not, then I would suggest a video. So we'll work that one out.
Thank you.
I had one more question, and I don't know if this is a little bit off topic, and if it is, just let me know.
Sure.
But like you mentioned, one of the big issues that we have is getting student social security numbers. And I'm wondering, with using this portal, if it's brought out like better outcomes with that. And if not, any suggestions or recommendations of ways of getting there? Because they just, I don't know, are pretty hesitant about giving social security.
No, absolutely, and you know, everyone has that concern. So it's really new as far as the portal being used. So we don't have a lot of results that I could report on in that way. But I think it is an opportunity to interface with your student more familiarly and intimately than you have in the past. And so it might lead to something like that. One thing we want to do is develop some familiarity with the student when they first come into the program. If they know the student portal is there and it's a place where they can get educational progress, it's also something that we hope they'll return to even after they leave the program. So it might be easier to reach students after they've left, and it might be easier to ask them, you know what, you haven't given us the social security number up to now, but you know, would you consider doing it now so that we can do a data match? And it may be now that they've, you know, got this trust with you and the familiarity with the portal that they would do that. I don't know, but those definitely things that we want to explore.
Thank you.
If I missed a question in chat, someone just unmute yourself, please, and ask. I'll double check and see.
Logging into email. So this year we become really good at that, but just as an option, can it be optional and not something that they have to do?
I missed the very beginning. Sorry, could you say that again?
Sorry about that. Yes, regarding email, can we make that option in the app optional? So that way, if students have access to their email and have an email, then they would put in that information in. But if they don't, then, you know, for them to still have access to the app, is that a possibility?
Well, for us to identify the student, they have to have either an email or a phone number. So it is an option. They don't have to have email if they have the phone number, and they'll provide that, you know, or the other way around, it could be email only, but we have to have one or the other.
Perfect. Thank you.
Let's see how much time we have left. Just 3 or 4 more minutes. So if you have any other questions, or if there's anything you want us to show again, just let me know. I'll go to the last slide. Let's see if we just got something new in chat.
Oh, I have another question. Sorry. Regarding the email again,
Mhm.
can students respond to the email, and would we then get that message? And the same thing with the SMS?
No, so right now that's not turned on. So what we're needing to do is limit the number of SMSs and emails at the moment, just so we don't run up our costs too high. So that was one thing I needed to mention, is that we need to get a way to be compensated for those costs. Email is pretty insubstantial. It's not a big factor, but SMS starts to add up over time. So for the time being, we want to limit how much communication goes on, but that is something that we will open up. If a student logs into the portal and already has an ID and T, won't they be duplicated? So yeah, it's not likely that they would be in that situation where they create an ID, because that only happens if they've come to your adult school website and they click that button to register as a new student. Okay, if that was a mistake somehow, I don't know, Gabriel, can you tell me what might happen. I don't know.
So the student can get into the portal only through self-registration, like we just demonstrated, or via an invitation from the agency. When there is an invitation involved, then the system already knows the student because the invitation goes out from TE and the student is already recorded in TE. So there's no possibility there. But if the student by herself registers through the self-registration process, yes, that could create a duplicate. They will be just like two individuals with different IDs.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, last minute, any last questions? If not, thank you all for joining us today. I hope you were interested in the student portal, and if you're interested in piloting or finding more information, please contact me.